Welcome back to another episode of Mindful Drawing. Today we're going to engage with our primary interface to this drawing exercise, our hands. We've looked at this before in a previous video. You can check that out if you like. That one was a little bit more on the representational side of things, using a subject to draw in our attention and to guide our act of drawing in both a detachment and a connection. This time around, we're going to be a little more abstract and just use the subject as a guiding place for engaging with our breath and moving into the page, and then have a little fun with whatever comes out of it through this flow of drawing. Come along and join me. Let's enjoy the ride. And today I was thinking about using a subject to start our drawing similar to a visualization meditation, looking at something like the hand or the nearby objects around you, anything that can kind of remain relatively static. But to get started, we'll take something simpler in that and look at boxing out some forms on a piece of paper. We're just letting the pencil kind of draw ovals or ellipsoids, starting anywhere. I'm just tracing it around a few times. And this old traditional drawing technique of boxing out a figure or a form by then overlapping another oval or circle that starts to shape out links in something like an arm or a leg or a finger, and just keep extending that. Something like a chain or branching, not worrying too much what it might make or anything like that. And even come back and create new little branches just to warm up our hand and start to get over that first step of finding a place on the page to put down the pen or the pencil. And I'm practicing a little bit this technique, boxing something in, framing something in, which can be very helpful in quickly getting down basic forms and shapes onto a page and letting us not have to focus so much on exactly what we're seeing or drawing, but just the act of recording visually and translating here to the paper. After a few, I think I'll switch to my left hand, the other hand, and just see I continue that along a little bit. Again, just warming up, going both directions, back and forth, around a few times to get into the mode of letting the hand flow and the arm go. You can start to fill in smaller gaps and layer things around. Extend out to the edges of a page in a sketchbook or a small piece of scrap. And if you feel warmed up with one hand, coming back to the other, a little quick switching off between the two. Get both sides of the brain active. Let the mind cross that central barrier. Engage both sides of thinking, whether you're right or left-handed, maybe ambidextrous. And from here, we could dive in and figure out what strange arrangement of people or parts are going on here. But I think we'll put this aside and try out going similar into something we can see. I figure the hand is always a good option here. See if I can keep that a little bit in frame, but to start trying to draw a hand in some position, find one that's comfortable that it can stay in for a little while. I think I'll leave mine open to look at the folds and creases and just use that as an opportunity to get back in and use the page to rough it in. Not too concerned if it's accurate or representational, as our time is meant to be spent just drawing into. So choosing a place to start somewhere on the hands, maybe a fingertip, and using that same technique to box it in Begin to define one portion in its rough direction relative to your position and move to the next segment or link or fleshy part, depending on where you start, and going around a few times. I'm using a fairly dark, loose graphite here, a 2B, I think, and a heavy pencil, so it's coming in pretty dark. If you prefer to let it come in lighter, just get that light touch to the paper. Going around many times lets us adjust and adapt to what we might see versus interpret as we look at a subject. And if things start developing in an off way, you can always redraw and adjust. Just letting a back and forth between what you see with your eyes and what your pencil is able to put into a space on the page. And using this initial entryway into the technique will get us comfortable seeing two worlds. One we create here with the pencil, the other in front of us as a subject. And as our attention is drawn deeper in through the act of making these marks and getting into the drawing, we can begin to see details, maybe arrangements, subtle places where things overlap or touch, where there's pressure between two elements and gravity forming our configuration here in our hand or whatever object might be in front of you. Maybe we begin to notice how folds can organize portions of the hand and connect various parts together in a slightly looser way as we just let here my oval or ellipsoid pieces try to tell the story. Or whatever pattern you're using, it can get freer, it can move more organically around. I like to try to keep it a little bit loose and see if I can find some of those folds in the tissue within these other shapes that I'm drawing. Just building sequentially one to the next. As we move along from space to space, wrapping to wrapping parts of something that we see, we begin to detach from the element that we're drawing and focus in just on the one moment we're recording with the shape, with the line, with a sketch. Letting that moment absorb us into the gradual adjustment and repetition in any one place. Frame out a larger formwork. I like to bring my attention to the direction that I'm moving my pencil for a while, and then try to count that in a way as to how many times do I go left, how many times do I go right, and bring some consistency to that, similar to counting my breath or any other action of time that in its attention brings stillness. And that counting can be an opportunity to connect with our breath. maybe out, around, in, around, out, around, in, around. Depending on the shape you're drawing, is it fast or slow to kind of bring that action into play? Some smaller shapes, I might have 2 breaths, 2 revolutions per breath, 2 out, and 2 in. Start to let some of the organizing shapes absorb you through the breathing and counting. In, around, out, around. As it begins to fill the page. And I notice a subtle pulsing as my breath aligns with a rhythm of drawing. That each time I come around, there's a greater push or pull at the apex of that rotation. Providing a new rhythm to the act and connection between my attention, awareness to my body, and this external exercise or action that helps draw that out of me. From time to time, we might see what we've placed as a mark in this beginning detachment from our creation and wonder, does it really look like what we're creating? And I think that's not entirely the point, but also a great chance to refocus on a detail, maybe get in somewhere smaller, and bring that breath and rotation really into what you see, whatever you're looking at. Slow it down and try to capture just the edges of the detail while keeping your eyes focused on the subject, kind of like a blind contour, if you're familiar with those, but without the attachment to the contours. And trying to now find ways to capture these little creases and folds here in my hand, small details where the ellipsoid or ovals that I'm drawing don't fully represent it, but they're able to capture small parts of it, just the edge, and then contribute their full shape to other elements of the drawing. Just really focusing on that one edge, maybe where the breath comes out or in. See where I might have found new creases, new changes in direction or details. You can pull me in, zooming to try to capture the complexities of the folds, the interior or exterior of the knuckle, but with a shape that doesn't quite fit. Any smaller, quick loops, quick collections of forms, a chance to slow it down. Maybe bring one breath per revolution, in and around, out and around, in and around, out and around. through some breaths with a little bit of space to quiet the mind, I am surprised by where this has gone, where attention or intention that I began with, planning for the day, fades out into something new, something just connected to this moment or light act of drawing, with some attention to how we draw with our body, with our eyes, has led somewhere entirely different than I expected. I was originally planning to just draw the shapes and veins and creases and folds. But then this flowing, looping, ovoid condition pulled me in, led me to relax into just making some kind of creation and mark here on the paper. It could provide a subtle translation of what my eyes see and let me out of a mode of representation or recording into a mode of mindful, generative practice. And as we find a technique in this attention, letting that take us in and continue to take up some space with our breathing and with our marks on the page, with our eyes connecting between our subject and our page, or perhaps just resting on the subject and letting whatever develops around the page be what it is. Your hand, subject start to get a little tense. Feel free to stretch them and flex them. Regain some connection to the posture. And take a few deep breaths to recenter. And then perhaps begin to allow our imagination just to flow into whatever we've drawn for a few minutes. Let the breathing return to a gradual, natural state without forcing it or giving it mind, and just let the mind drift into what you've created on the page and find new paths, new connections, continued technique in wrapping. Flowing with the curves or the lines you've created, getting a chance for the fingers to feel and explore all the shapes and figures that they've helped create, and to see where they might lead as we use our mind's image of the subject, whether it's the hand or something near you, to continue to expand upon this structure that we've provided for it. And it'll take just a few minutes here to draw, have some free drawing, to relax into that space. We might find ourselves in a bit of a flow here in the drawing, and absorption. Just remembering to breathe, to check in on the body and release any tension as part of our conscious mind gets pulled in here. We can forget to give ourselves the space to breathe. And we can also use that pulling in to help us check in on the body, move around it with our breath. Start maybe in the hands as you breathe in and feel if there's any tension from holding the pencil, and try to just relax that. Maybe the movements slow down a little bit, the grip lightens up. And on the next breath, moving to the palm, feeling if the grip is tired, active, and letting the out breath just relax the tension there. And stop moving or keep moving, whichever works, whichever feels good for you. And then bringing that attention to the wrist. Those have been crimped in a position. If you've been practicing good technique and holding it up off the page. And on an out breath, letting it relax. Maybe letting your hand drop to the paper. It's okay. And then into the forearm and the elbow. And just giving them some ease. You're loosening the marks. And then move up into my shoulders and cross over and check the other arm and the back. And just let the shoulders fall and some tension come out of them that we might have been holding. Sometimes a good way to release that tension is to build it up with attention and just let it sink out. Reach up into the neck, move it around and feel if it's kinked, if it's pressured in any way. And then close the eyes and let it disconnect from the paper. Keep moving the pencil or stop whenever you feel comfortable. And then the out breath, let any tension in the neck just drift out on the head, up and down, side to side. Lean it in and out. I like to check in with my lower back. A lot of tension there, especially from sitting. See if I can spread that around like four with the breath. As the cavity compresses, shrinks in on the out breath, and engages and expands in all directions, forward and back, up and down, left and right. And I breathe in. And as you feel relaxed and starting to drift away from what I'm drawing with my mind, coming back to the physical space of my body, into that breathing, these heavier, more deliberate breaths. Finish up the last few marks and perhaps put the pencil down. Give my fingers a good relaxing stretch through, a little motion to them, a little side to side, maybe flexing the wrist and the hands, fingers back. Just make sure they weren't held too much tension in that moment we shared. No. Why don't we see what we can do here with this poor, twisted, somewhat mangled, but also somewhat recognizable hand. It's not so foreign that we can't draw into it, or maybe find some new figures and forms to inspire us at other times. I don't know if it got any better, but at least got a little bit more texture to it. Thank you all for joining me on that little meandering adventure through connecting our hands together in drawing and finding some new figures and forms on the page. If yours is like mine, it might look a little strange, and probably not a lot like your hand, but there are resemblances and things we can begin to draw into and explore our creativity as the subject matter is challenged through a technique and through the attention on just the moment and just the act as we bring our breath and attention to a mindful practice of drawing as a way to meditate and prepare ourselves for a relaxing and productive day, full of creativity and expression. Again, thanks for watching the video. Let me know what you think about it, and have a wonderful week. Thank you.